Hey, this is Yazuki Wolf, and welcome to the Friday Night Art Stream. So, I'm going to be continuing with the illustration I was working on last week. Let me know if the audio is okay. I was having some issues with the background noise earlier, but hopefully I've been able to fix that up. I'll make adjustments if anyone notices any issues. But for now, let's go ahead and get started. It looks like we are live. So, we're going to be continuing with the illustration that I worked on last week. I just kind of added some colors here. So let's see here. So I added like some combinations of colors here for to make things a little bit easier, so I don't have to be kind of worried about what color combinations I want to work on while I'm on the stream. Now it's basically I can just focus on rendering. So now I'm going to go ahead and go to the bottom and see what we have. So basically, it looks like we had her hair done last time and her face. And I found this ribbon here that apparently hadn't been done before. So I think the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my color layer here. And just so you can kind of see the layers, I'm going to turn on the layers for a second. Hopefully it doesn't mess up the audio. 1 second. Let's see here. Okay, the audio still is okay. So now you should be able to see the layers on the right side. Let me go ahead and move that over a little bit for you. There you go. So you notice I have this layer here that's outlined in that's colored red, and I colored that red so that I know that this is a layer that I want to delete, or basically just to not have in the finished illustration. That's just my own personal system. I have another layer here that's just like what do you call it? Reference images that I kind of gathered. So turn that off, and so this layer is going to be my color palette layer. And I already had the color palette for her hair, so now I'm just going to go ahead and make the color palettes for the rest of the colors here. So, for example, we have, well, I mean, the ribbon's not that important. I think it only comes up once in the whole illustration, as far as I can tell. Maybe I should put that in some other places, but for now, we're not going to worry about the ribbon. Let's worry about the other colors. So we have this kind of dark leather color here. So I'll select that and come over here, and I'm using my pen tool, so that it's just a straight color. There's no what you call it, no transparencies or opacity issues here. So there we have the straight color, and to give you an idea of how I'm selecting these colors, I'm going to move the screen over a little bit again so that you can see the color picker in the lower left hand corner. I know it's going to be kind of small on your screen, but bear with me. So there, basically, you can see right here where the color is that's been selected. And usually, so I want to make first, this is going to be my mid color. Now that I'm looking at it, this might be a little dark for the mid tone. Maybe I might want to actually move that up a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that. Move it about right there. Yeah, that looks maybe a little bit better. Down a little bit more. There we go. So that's probably going to be a good color for the mid tone. And I'll go ahead and update that right now that I have that selected. So which layer is my, which layer do I have the leather on? Dang, I have too many layers, Here we go. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and change that to my new mid-tone. And I'm going to make the color that it was before the darker variation of it. There we go. Okay. And so generally what I'm doing when I pick these colors is, first thing is I move the, so let's say if I'm going to go even darker than this, I'm going to move it down and to the right. So down this way. So that's increasing, it's making it darker, but it's also increasing saturation. Then I can also move the actual hue. So I'll take this, in the upper left, you see this little like square on the wheel. I'll move that counterclockwise, and then that gives me my new color. And then when I'm going for the highlight, I'll select the mid color and then move up and to the left, and then I actually move the wheel clockwise a little bit, and that gives me like a highlight color. Yeah, that should be pretty good. Alright, and then let's see what else we want. Now we have another darker leather tone here. This one, once again, I might have made it too dark to start with, so let's actually take that and move it up a little bit, maybe more clockwise. Yeah, maybe a little too much. Move it down a little bit. think about right there is perfect. Okay, so I'm going to change that color as well. I'm going to keep the color, but I'm going to keep the color that it was, and I'm going to make that the kind of darker variation here. There we go. Okay. And where were we? So that is, which color is that? This color here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and change that color. Sweet. Come back to our color pickers. And next we want a lighter color. Well, actually, this would do the darker one. So I'm going to move down to the right a little bit, counterclockwise. There we go. That's about right. Then mid color, select the mid color, move up to the left, and move the color wheel clockwise. That looks about right. All right, cool. So what other colors do we have? Next up, we have, let's do this gem. So go ahead and put the gem color. This is probably fine for its mid-tone. And now this one I'm probably going to change the colors even more. So like I'm still going to go down and to the right for the darker, but I'm going to really move the wheel clockwise. Actually, no, counterclockwise. This way. Yeah, let's do counterclockwise. So that we have kind of different colors interacting with each other, so you really get that gem type of feel to it. And then go darker. I feel like clockwise actually works better. Okay. Clockwise down. Something around here. Yeah, that's probably better. Okay, and then make this darker still. Okay, and now for the highlight, maybe that'd be kind of more of a greenish color. Okay, that looks good. All right, next up we have this kind of blue cloth color. So go ahead and put that here. Oh, hello, Dashu. Is that how I pronounce your name? Oh, K Dashu. I didn't see the whole name. There you go. Good to have you on the stream. Feel free to ask any questions in the areas of Japan, art, or gaming. So the kind of premises that I'm going to be illustrating, but you can ask me anything, and I'll just kind of do free thought conversation while I draw. So let's see here. Now we're going to take in this color, and we're going to move to get the darker shade of that. All right, and once again, to get the darker shade, I'm just selecting the color. I'm moving the, I'm making it darker and more saturated, so it's down and to the right, and then I'm changing the color wheel by moving clockwise a little bit. There we go. And then oppositely, when I'm getting a lighter color, we're going to move the, in the square, we're going to move that up and to the left. And you can see that in the lower left-hand corner. And then I'm going to move the color wheel the opposite direction. There we go. Looks about right. Okay, what other colors do we got in here? We have this sort of kind of bluish, kind of purple-gray color. So I'm going to make my color palette for that as well. Okay, move that down a little bit and change the color, the hue. Let's go. I'm going to move counterclockwise for that one. I don't know if there's a particular rule about how you should change the hue. I guess it depends on how you imagine the thing reflecting that you're drawing. If it's going to reflect different colors or just be like a deeper hue of the same color. Since this is cloth, I don't think it's going to be that drastic in its hue change. But it is good to have some hue change, or else it tends to make your colors look kind of pale or dry, I guess, because it looks basically like you took a black and white image and just kind of drew the color over it. It doesn't have the kind of dynamic feel of the colors that the colors would have if you actually change the hue as well. All right, so next up, I think that's most of the colors. I think the last thing is just this kind of silver metal. Well, that's really light. Okay, so let's move that down. So our mid-range. So I call these my color beans, I guess. Just a whole bunch of beans that I put in the upper left-hand side of illustration. Is that a good color? I don't know, I think I want that to be more toward green since it's kind of a metal. I want to go for a metal feel for that. And this side too, maybe something like that. That probably will work. I think that's most of the colors. We got the red, we got that. Okay, so the last thing is the gold. And the thing about gold, I mean, it depends on what type of gold you're going for, but a lot of times it has sort of a green hue to it. So I'm going to try to put some green into this. So moving down, kind of move toward green a little bit. It's a little too far. Yeah, that'll probably work. And then darker color. The darker I might actually move back toward yellow. I'm not sure if this would actually work. We'll see what it ends up looking like. Might actually decide to change it later. Yeah, that'll probably work. Okay, I think that's good enough to start. So let's go ahead and I'm going to switch the screen back to the zoomed up version, just so you don't have to worry about the layers and everything. So let's see here. Where can we start? Okay, I think we'll start with the body. Actually, no, we didn't make colors for the body. We'll skip the body for now. We'll start with the clothes. There we go. Okay. So first off, actually, yeah, let me show you my layers one more time, because this is one more little trick that I do a lot. So you'll see here in the layers that I have a whole bunch of masked layers here. So I have the this is the body, and then I have all the different matte colors for the clothing, all on clipping layers on top of that. So now what I want to do is I want to actually have the shades, like the shadows, highlights, and all that, to be masking layers onto each individual matte color of the cloth. So what I need to do is I need to convert this so that all of these are no longer clipping layers. But if I just take the clipping layers off, you'll see that I get a lot of like bleed out on the edges and whatnot. So the way I handle that is I just select all of these. I hold Control and click on the base layer. So that gives me the selection tool, or the selection area, I guess. And then with this option here, it will delete everything outside of that area. So when I click that, it deletes all the kind of bleed. And now I can go ahead and take those off of the clipping layer, and it will still have so they're now off. They're now no longer clipping layers, but they don't have any bleed. Now that may be a little bit more difficult to do in Photoshop, because I don't think Photoshop allows you to edit multiple layers at once. Like how you saw here, I selected all these layers at once and was able to edit them all at once. I don't know if Photoshop always allows you to do that. Clip Studio does, so that's one thing I kind of like. But I believe in Photoshop you could have clipping layers inside of clipping layers, so maybe it wouldn't be an issue in Photoshop as much, because I think with Clip Studio you can only have one clipping layer per one group of clipping layers per base layer, but that gets complicated anyways. So now that you know how that works, so I go to the first layer with my clothing here, and now I can make a new clipping layer for that. And if I draw inside of this layer, it's going to be, what's the word? It's going to be clipped to within the actual color that I want to work on. So now that you see that, I'm going to take the layer part away again. There you go. Okay, so let's get started. So first thing we want is this sort of general darker layer, which I'm going to use for the gradients. And gradients, you know, generally the lower part of the screen is going to be the lower part of the object, or whatever it is that you're shading, is going to be darker than top. So I just put some color in the lower parts, the lower areas here, and then I switch to my watercolor brush and just slowly blend that up. Now, if you you can also use the gradient tool if you're in Photoshop or anything. I just like the control that the watercolor brush gives me. Otaku T, hey, how's it going? Good to have you on the stream. Feel free to ask any questions you want in the areas of art, gaming, or Japan. I'm going to freely answer any questions that come up while I work on this illustration. So, let's see here, how's that going? All right, so that looks fairly good. I feel like I want a little bit more of it though, because it looks like it's a little too, what's the word? too subdued. Or, there we go, a little bit darker. All right, that'll work. And this is another thing you can do at this phase if you want to. You've probably heard about reflective light, and so the reflective light, it often looks like it's a highlight, but it's actually not. The reflective light is just there's something weird going on here. One second, let me try to figure out what this is. For some reason, there's like this area here is slightly different shaded than the other parts. I don't know why that's doing that. That is really odd. Because it's not on this layer, but then when I put that layer on top of it, it's doing that. Let's try making a new layer and see if it changes anything. Nope, there's something there. Oh, which means that it's not this layer, it's probably another layer on top somewhere. This is the stuff that drives me crazy. So like, for my personal work, I probably wouldn't really care, but with when you're working on a professional illustration, little things like this will actually come up in your reviews where they'll be like, this is out of place, like this color is wrong or something, especially in Japan. I don't think in America they probably wouldn't care, but in Japan they're really picky about things like that. Where is that coming from? That's really unusual. So yeah, take that layer off and it's gone as far as I can tell. I don't know. It's weird. So if I redraw it, it'll be there again. That is weird. I don't know what that is. Well, if I ever figure that out later, we'll work on that later. But the thing I want to show you is for, what do you call it, reflective light. So reflective light, it looks like a highlight, but it's actually just your mid-tone. So by going to this gradient and then just deleting your gradient at the edges, you can see how that kind of makes it look like if there's a highlight there. And now this will actually work as a reflective light. So this is the light that's bouncing off the ground and coming back up. So that's why you're going to put it in the lower left-hand corner if the light's coming from the lower right-hand corner if your light's coming from the top left. I just, as a rule, I kind of generally think, unless otherwise specified, that the light's going to be coming from the top left. So that's why I'm putting my reflective light in the lower right. And you see how it looks like there's a highlight here, but I'm not using any highlight colors. I'm just deleting the gradient that I just put down. That's just like a really quick way to add reflective light. It may be good to come back to that later though, just because of you don't know how many other layers are going to kind of come on top of that, so you might want to look at it at the end. So we're going to add another layer, which is going to be the shadow, and it looks like I have a question from K Dashu. So, what do you think about animating in Clip Studio? I wanted to buy EX, but I found that it doesn't have a way to play with audio. Well, I personally haven't really done a lot of animation. The only animation I've done is with Spine 2D. So, unfortunately, I'm probably not the best person to ask. I mean, I don't know, how much have you tried it? Because I tried doing some messing with animation in like the Adobe products. I forgot what it used to be, like Adobe. What was it called? I think it was like Flash Animation, and then they changed it to like Adobe Animator or something like that. And my issue with that was that like the animation is like all the controls are different than the regular Photoshop, so it was like really frustrating to me that things didn't work the same. So if the Clip Studio's animation actually works the same, where like the controls are the same and the UI is the same as your regular Clip Studio, I think that would be really cool, because then it would be very like one-to-one, like very easy to get into. But I personally haven't tried it out, so I can't really say one way or the other. I liked what do you call it? Spine 2D for animation. But it's kind of like a Flash. That's not everyone really call it Flash, but it's the type of animation where you're not drawing frame by frame. It's where you actually give your character a bone structure, and so each element, like for example, like this character's head would be separate from her body. So where is her head? Cow Atama. All right, so from here to here. Now this isn't, I didn't actually make this for this, so it's not going to look right, but you can see how like her head is separate from her body. So like if you're using not Clip Studio, Spine 2D, you can actually add a bone to her head and then have the bone move, and it would move her head with the bone. And I found that to be kind of pretty good, especially for game animations. And actually, a couple people at my work have started using Spine 2D for that. Because the other thing that's kind of interesting about it is you can add a mesh to your did I turn a layer off? Yeah, I think I turned one of the layers off. Okay, there we go. All right, so you can add a mesh to an element of your character or whatever it is that you're animating, and you can actually like squish it or like extend it and stuff. So sometimes they've been using it in the games here for if there's a character that's maybe like talking to you in the UI or something, and they want like their like shoulders to like shrug or do something like that. They'll just take the mesh, which is like a frame. Mesh would be like in case anyone doesn't know. I don't know. You probably do know, but let's see if I can find there. Should say. I don't really use meshes very often. Okay, I can't find it. But anyways, a mesh is just like a way for you to manipulate the particular layer, where you can like squish it or like make it kind of change its size or whatnot. So you can do that for animation as well, which is kind of it's very Flash-like, but it's more complex than Flash, because you can actually make bone structures, sort of the same type of things that you do with the 3D animator, where you put an actual skeleton into the 3D model and then manipulate it. So you only try with Pro, which has 24 frames. It's the same. Clip Studio uses frame by frame. Yeah. So I don't know. It seems good to me. I just haven't actually tried it myself. So I haven't done a lot of animation. Also, I hear that Unity has an animator too that's going to be a lot like Spine 2D. So I might mess with that in the future for game animation. It also depends on what type of animation you're doing. Like if you're doing a game animation, or if you're doing animation for like your own like cartoon series or something. I imagine it'd be quite different. So right now I'm just adding the shadow color now. Yeah, animation can be pretty valuable if you work in a game studio, because not a lot of people are able to do it. And there's actually a lot of areas where it comes up. Like with the game we're working on now, there's people who have to do like animate all the different cutscenes in the game, and then there's like animations for different UI stuff, where like maybe there's a, what do you call it? There's like I guess you could call it a loot box. There'd be like a loot box or something that you open, and you have to like animate all the sparkles and everything to make the player feel special about getting their loot box, I guess. But then there's other things like just like promotional videos and things where they want animations for those. So it comes up a lot. The other thing that's pretty important also is particle effects, and if you could do animation in conjunction with particle effects, that's also pretty valuable within game studios. I think game studios is probably what I know the most now. I did study manga for a while, but currently I work in the game industry, so that's where I get most of my info from. So I'm kind of just making this up as I go along. Generally, I use the pencil tool to put down the color, just to kind of get it on there. And then once I have it on there, if I want to do gradation or whatnot, I use the watercolor brush. Just because I find that the watercolor brush has it's the easiest brush to kind of manipulate the gradations. Not exactly that I'm not actually looking for a watercolor effect per se. Yeah, it looks fairly okay. It's really annoying me though that I have these these artifacts here. I don't know if you could see those, but like how this color is kind of different there. I don't know where that's coming from, because up until now I was just putting matte color down, The only thing I can imagine is maybe I have some transparency on this layer that I didn't know about. No, it doesn't say it's transparent. I have no idea where that's coming from. Hopefully I'll find it in one of the other layers as we go. Alright, so next we're going to go to the highlights for this layer. So generally I'm just going to do three, actually I guess it's four masking layers per color. So there's going to be the, well actually three I guess. So there's the base color, and then there's the three masking layers. And the three masking layers are going to be this gradient color, the shadow, and then the highlight. And then we'll see how that looks after we finish all the colors, and then we'll decide if we want to add more next week or just be satisfied with it for this week. And the light's going to be coming from the upper left, so I'm keeping that in mind as I add these colors, these highlights. Is there a word for a highlight that's not really like a highlight? Because like I was thinking about it, highlight is, you think of that as like what you see in her eyes right here, where it's like a spot. It's a spot of light colors. So it's like the highlight of the drawing, or the highlight of the thing is like that one point, right? But when I'm just doing lighter color all around, I don't know if it's really right to call that highlight anymore. But I don't know what else to call it. I guess you could just call it light, but I don't know. Light seems like it includes more than just that. All right, so we got Benjamin Russell. Thanks, welcome to the stream, and let's see what your question is. Do you know of any places that ship manga in Japanese to Australia, or at least overseas? That's a tough question. I may not be the most knowledgeable because I just buy mine in Japan, which I guess it's kind of unfair. But let's see, shipping. I imagine there would have to be some, because I remember when I was in the States, like the price for manga is way too expensive over there. Like they were charging like $12-14 for stuff that you could buy at the store in Japan for like $3 or $4, maybe $5 at the most. Where would ship? So I buy mine from Book Off. I don't know if they would ship or not. Where else might it have manga? Kinokuniya maybe? I don't know. Should we see if we can find that real quick? Let's see. Let me save this real quick. Switch my screen to the left screen. Actually, no, switch to the... Yeah, that's fine. Okay. I'm going to move this up a little bit. Let's see if we can't find that. So, Kinokuniya. Kinokuniya's eShop. So it's www.superkinokuniya. I'm guessing if anyone would ship manga, I would imagine it would be them. But everything, it doesn't seem to have English, so I don't know if they would include for outside of Japan. Oh, the other possibility is, would Amazon do that? I know that I know if I buy from Amazon in I could order from Amazon in America and it will send it to Japan. So you might want to look at Amazon in Japan and see if it would send it to America. It would be hard for me to search that myself because it usually bases it off of your whatever address you had put into your account. So it would what's the word? I'm just gonna see if I can find it here if it says where they deliver to. So like if your account says America and you log into the Japanese Amazon, which would be amazon.co.jp, and then you look for a manga, it may say this delivers to America because of if your address is America. Soft drink. How do I find out where this ships to? Yeah, I don't know. It's that's a tough question. I'll have to look into that later, and if I can find something in the future, I'll try to let you know. But unfortunately, I don't order outside of Japan usually. So also, you could try just like going to sites that have scans or what's the word? Like online manga might be a possibility. So have you tried turning off the color palette? Maybe the artifact is there. That's a good thought. Let's see. So where was the artifacts? Here they are. Nope, doesn't seem to be that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is only that one thing. But let's just randomly turn off all the layers and see if anything changes it. Nope, don't see it going away. Where's that coming from? Maybe it's coming from the bottom. Oh, it's gone now. Did it? Nope, still there. So it's got to be something with that layer. Did I get all my layers back? Yeah. Don't know. But I don't want to spend too much time on that, so we'll move on. Where was it? Here? Okay, there we go. Alright, so how's our highlights going? Oh, also I was thinking, so because once you start drawing, it's a lot of just doing the same thing over again, so I can't, instead of like repeating what I'm doing over and over again, I figure it'd be good to just have an informal topic of discussion for the stream. So today's informal topic is things that I love and hate about Japan. So I've lived here, I don't know, 14 years, maybe 13, I kind of lost track. But I've lived here for quite a while, so I don't have a lot of the initial kind of feelings of when you first get to Japan and being kind of shocked about what you see here. But I do have like long-term living here, like life here, like things that kind of get on your nerves or things that you really just enjoy. And especially recently I went to the States for a little while, so I could kind of get the comparison of the two different kind of lifestyles to some extent. I did a video where I was talking about the kind of like reverse culture shock and things that were kind of stood out to me there. And a lot of it was just like about like food and like general service, but in more about the kind of comparison of Japan and America, of like things that, or more, I guess, specifically about America, not necessarily comparing it to messed up. More specifically about Japan, not necessarily comparing it to America, but some of the things that I've found that I really like while I'm here is, the first thing is the safety. It is a really safe place to live, because like the crime rate, like I don't remember, but like it's really low. It's like orders of magnitude lower than some of the safest places in like America or other foreign countries. You very rarely have to worry about things like pickpockets or like even if you lose your wallet or something on the train, and there's a good chance that you could come back and ask the train attendant and someone might have turned it in. You know, it's like if I leave a restaurant and I leave my phone by accident, you know, I come back the next day, it's still there. So it's really really nice. As Benjamin says, he just checked Amazon Japan, and that does ship manga to Australia. Okay, awesome. Glad that worked out. So I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can help this guy. I don't know, but glad that was actually helpful. All right, so that's looking good. Yeah, sometimes I actually use Amazon a lot when I want what do you call them? Electronic like products, like computer, not computers per se, but the computer like peripheral devices and things. Because surprisingly, even though Japan is really like technologically advanced in a lot of ways, computer products are really expensive here. And they have this thing where they don't like things that are old. So as soon as like a new version comes out, they just get rid of all the old ones. Like sometimes they don't even put them on sale. They just like stop selling them. And it's like, so you always have to buy the newest thing at the highest price. And it's kind of annoying sometimes. So I guess that goes on the list of things that I don't particularly like about living in Japan. So whenever I want things that are like new things for my computer, like maybe like a gaming keyboard or something like that, or mouse. Like it's generally better to actually purchase them in America, or to purchase them from Amazon and have them sent over here. And sometimes even with the price of the even with the prices of shipping, it's still worth it. Huh, that's interesting. There we go, that's the color I wanted. Alright, so this layer was actually transparent, so this layer is going to behave a little differently than the other ones. But we can work with that. So the other thing that I like about Japan a lot is the transportation, because I've been I use the train pretty much every morning to get to work, and I haven't actually bought a car here. I had a car when I used to live in America, but when I moved to Japan, or actually when I knew that I was going to be moving back to Japan, I sold my car right away, and then I came to Japan. I never bought a car again because it's just so easy to get around anywhere. Like I've traveled even like across the country. Like if you know where Hokkaido is, it's really far to the north, and I could travel all the way up to Hokkaido and like all the way down to like Hiroshima, all just using the public transportation. So the public transportation here is superb, and my friend came to visit me recently, and he was worried that he was gonna like miss a train or something. And the thing is that even if you miss a train here, the next train comes within like 5 minutes usually, maybe like 7 or 8 at the most, and I think that'll work for now. And then the trains, they're extremely clean. They always come on time. You can actually like look up on your app of when you'll be arriving at your destination, and the train will actually arrive at that time, so you can have someone meet you at the exact time that you want them to. And so Japan's very punctual. It's interesting because I've been to other Asian countries, and a lot of like I went to the Philippines and other countries where time is kind of like a relative concept, where it's like we'll meet you at 6, but 6 really means like we'll meet you whenever we end up getting there, because you know you can never, like, especially in the Philippines, you can never know what's going to happen that's going along the way that's going to delay you. And so like there isn't that sort of like super punctual type of feel, even like Korea and other countries that I've been to. But in Japan, they're really about like being on time, which I don't know if that's a positive or negative, because I kind of do like the more casual parts of other countries sometimes. But moving to my next layer. Sorry, I get distracted when I'm talking. Turn this into a clipping layer. Okay, cool. And but in Japan, like so you're expected to be on time, and you're also expected to be usually like maybe 5 minutes early, which can be good if you're the really punctual type. You might like that, but it also can be kind of annoying if you're not as punctual and you don't like feeling like rushed or pressured to be places. Like here, a lot of times if like someone's running like 2 minutes late, they'll send you a message on their phone like, "Oh, I'm running late," and it's like it was only like 2 minutes, but they'll make sure that they tell you. Or even I've even had people like send messages even when they're basically on time. They'll still send a message to let you know that they're basically that they're not 5 minutes early. You know, that's what they'll send a message for that even. Okay, I'm doing the wrong thing. I want this to be a gradation layer, not a shading layer. So get the gradation first. I feel like this layer isn't as dark as I was expecting it would be, so I'm actually going to darken this up a little bit. There's like a weird, it sounds like a lawnmower or something outside. I hope that's not coming up in the stream. If it is, let me know and I'll make some adjustments. Okay, that's quite a bit better. Okay, smooth that out a little bit. But also, like on the transportation note, um, I was in a really good situation before with my old company because they had something called flex time, which basically is this. It's basically it basically means that there's a core time that they want you to be at work. Like I think it was like 11 to 6, and so if the job was going to have any meetings or they were going to they needed people to be there between 11 or 6. That's like that's the core time. But 11 to 6 doesn't make for an 8-hour day. So you could kind of like choose how you want to do it. You could come at 11 and stay till like, I forgot how exactly the calculation, but it's like you could stay from like 11 to 8, or you could come earlier and come like 9 and then leave right at 6. You know, it's like you can choose how you want to run your schedule, which was really nice. I don't have that with my new company, but they have their reasons for that. And that's not the right. There we go. That's better. And what that ended up meaning was that you could generally you could miss the rush, the busy hours of the day. So the kind of cram period where the trains. I don't know. You've probably seen it on the internet or like pictures or something where there's like these trains that people are like packed into them like sardines, and there's actually people who it's their job to kind of push you into the train to make sure that everyone gets in before the doors close. I don't know if you've seen that before, but that's not so pleasant. And that's what I have a lot of the time now in the mornings. Whereas before, when we were running with flex time, we never had to really deal with that. Because I would come at like 11, and that would mean that all the busy people, all the general people would come at 9. So that's where the really busy time was. But after that, it really got a lot. I'm gonna make this a little bit darker. It really got a lot nicer. So you could get on the train, and maybe you have like an hour to get to work, or 30 minutes or so. Like for here, I think an hour to work actually isn't particularly uncommon. Some people I know that they take like a hour and a half or so to get to work every day, which is kind of crazy. You think about it, like an hour and a half there, an hour and a half back, that's like 3 hours. But if you can get a seat on the train, you could sit down, you could work on your phone, or like play video games or whatever, and that's like 3 hours that you can use because you're seated, as opposed to if you were like driving a car or something. I suppose if you have a car, you could still use podcasts, but you know what I mean. And that was something I was able to do when I had the flex time. But now that I don't have that, we're basically packed into these trains, and like literally, like don't ever say that it's crowded on the train unless your body is literally like simultaneously pushed up against 2 or 3 people at the same time. Like that, if you're in that situation, then you can say it's crowded, because that's what crowded means in Tokyo. If you just have people like invading your personal space, that's not crowded. That's just Tuesday. You know, that's nothing unusual. So, like, there are times where I can't even like play a game on my phone because there isn't enough space in between, like, in front of me and the back of the person in front of me. So there's nowhere to actually hold the phone, is basically what I'm trying to say. So that's the thing that's not super pleasant. Yeah, I think I'm liking that darker color quite a bit better. So I'm just trying to think about the other layers and where shadows are going to be falling. Looks more or less okay. Another thing I see sometimes that people do is they'll do like, how you call it? Sort of like a shadow that goes along the edge here, but it just leaves a little bit open for, once again, for that kind of reflective light effect. And then what you could do is you can just blend that up from there. I think that gives it kind of a more, I don't know, heavily shaded look, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. It just, I almost want to say like a comic type of look, but I don't know if that's the right way to describe it. But there was a couple of jobs that I did where they actually specifically wanted that type of shading. Yeah, like that. That's an interesting effect. Sometimes I don't know how realistic it is, because some of the jobs I've done, they've had like very specific directions of how they wanted things shaded. And a lot of times you have to kind of bend the rules of how light actually works. Because maybe they want like a highlight in places where there really wouldn't be a highlight. But you just have to kind of like pretend a little bit for the overall look of the, to make the whole thing look cool. I mean, that's the general effect, the general idea. Like, I think what it is that that's the kind of effect that you see a lot with like water drops and with like crystals and things like that. So I think what it is that it makes the character look a lot shinier and more like reflective and like just generally more epic. So if you think of like a rare card or like a rare item in a game, like they're going to have more sparklies and things like that. So with those types of characters, that often wants you to do more high contrast, lots of highlights and like reflective light all over the place type of shading techniques, which sometimes borders on not being realistic anymore. Okay, I think that works. Let's go to make another layer for the highlights. Okay. I feel like this side needs to be needs to pump that a little bit more. Hopefully we can get this done in the next hour. Less if possible. You could also do gradient layers for your lighting as well, like how we did the gradient from the bottom. You could do a gradient from the top like this, where you just kind of take that and then kind of pull it down and shade. All depends on the type of effect you're going for and how much time you want to spend on each individual element. But since I want some roundness to that, I figured it'd be okay to have that sort of effect there, and then we could go back in and make the actual like stronger highlights on top of that, like so. And I feel like this needs some reflective light, so I'll go back to the the gradation layer and just delete some of that from the bottom there. There you go, that's a nice reflective light there. So once again, the reflective light is not actually a highlight, it's just deleting the shadows. Alright. For her collar as well, I want some light on that. Alright, cool. Alright, so give me 1 second, I just want to check some settings. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so where was I? So going back to the informal topic about things I love and hate about Japan. So I was talking about transportation and how that's kind of a love and hate relationship because there's a lot of really good things about the transportation. It's always on time. It allows you to live without a car, which is nice because you never have to worry about like your car breaking down and having to pay for like repairs or anything like that because that's all taken care of through the public transportation. But there are just the super crowded days on the train, and like you do kind of get used to those. And actually, it's kind of worked out for me a lot because so I used to always play when I used to have the free flex time, and I was able to kind of sit down and play video games. Like that was cool because I got to see what type of games were popular in Japan and like what the mobile games were because I worked at a mobile gaming studio, but you get kind of bored of mobile games after a while, and then what happened is that when I switched and I could no longer sit down on the train, it was like it's way too crowded to have your hands like in any type of position to actually play a video game. Like what I started doing was I started watching videos on YouTube instead, and how that actually really helped me out a lot is that I was able to put on programming videos for like teaching C sharp. Hold on a second. Did I do it? What's that? 今日じゃなかった？あー、ごめんね。Wait, what was I saying? Yeah, so like I was able to start learning C sharp programming for Unity and things because every day on the train, I'm on the train for maybe like 40 minutes in the morning and then 40 minutes at night. So that's like a good like hour and a half or so to be able to just need some highlights on this area. I don't know how to do that. I'm gonna make a new layer so I can experiment a little bit. So every day I get like an hour and a half where I can just watch videos teaching me C sharp programming, which helped me a lot. Like because I literally just well, not necessarily only study on the train, but I would just study on the train, and then after the train, I would test out things that I learned at home for like an hour or so, and I was able to learn a lot that way. And then also recently, I started being interested in like in 3D because I saw some tutorials for ZBrush or ZBrush depending on where you live, and I was looking at those tutorials and I was like, hey, this doesn't look too hard. So then I got the free trial and I started trying it out, and now at work I'm actually using that. So that's really cool that I was able to learn all that. So I've been able to actually use that time pretty effectively. So even though it is uncomfortable sometimes when you're really crowded on the train, everything, like the time that you have that you can every day, there's just like this time that you're stuck in like a moving machine and you can't do anything else. If you can use that for your studying time, it can be really powerful because now like you have this time where you're forced to you're desperate to have something hold your attention because you don't want to just be stuck in the mental space of I'm in a crowded machine that's moving with like people like bumping into me and stuff. You want to you want to occupy your brain with something else. So if you can study during that time, it's like your brain's almost like starving for that. Like it's like, give me something to think about, you know. So you put that on there, and it's like it's really easy to start learning and like developing new skills that way. You put a little bit more in here. All right, that's fairly okay for that leather. Let's go back down to the boots. And I think what I am going to do is I am going to make a gradient. So I'm going to have the boots have a color from the top, maybe a little bit down here, and then I'm going to gradiate that down, basically just smoothing it, I guess. Alright, and now what we're going to do is, now that we have that sort of gradation here, we're going to delete the areas that we already had shadows at. So I'm going to find my shadow layer, which would be this layer. Select that and go ahead and just Control X to delete that. There we go. And now I'm going to actually complement my shadows by deleting some of that gradation that we put there. So like around here. Like around this kind of bevel of the leather in this area. Underneath this flap. Okay. Works more or less. Now I'm going to go through on top and make a harder highlight where the light is hitting directly. And if this is not enough shading, we can go through later and we can actually add another highlight layer if we want as well. Like sometimes what I do is, right now I'm actually using straight color, but I also might add another layer that's like a screen layer, or other type of like effect layer. Also, another thing I like about Japan is the food. It's quite good if you like Japanese food. And the thing that people often misunderstand about Tokyo is, like, there's this kind of image that Tokyo is a really expensive place to live. And in terms of the cost of housing, I think it really is. But in terms of like food and going out, it's basically as expensive as you want it to be. Because if you want to live cheaply, you can definitely live very affordably in Tokyo. It's all about, how you say, like choosing what you want to do. So like if there's a place where food is going to cost you, on average, when I eat out, I'll spend maybe $8 to $10, maybe $20, maybe like 8, 10, 20, something like that. So it's pretty comparable to what eating out in America or like other countries would be, I would assume. And the other big thing is that there's no tipping. So like the price of your food, that's it. There's nothing else on top of that. And you can get a really good meal even for that price. It's never going to be less. You're not going to have as much as large of a meal as you would like in the States, because in general I believe that America and Japan spends about the same amount on food on average. But America is getting like maybe twice or 3 times the amount of calories, I believe, is what the statistic was. So that was a thing. And but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because in my opinion, you probably have too many calories in America. You could probably the portions in Japan, at first it takes a while to get used to, because you're like, I don't want to spend that much money on just this small portion. Like, and even now sometimes there are places where it can be kind of a con for me, where like I'll go to like I don't know, like a izakaya or something, and they're charging you. Oh, izakaya is like the drinking bar, I guess, and they're charging you like $10 or $12. Oh, pizza is a big thing that's kind of annoying for me, because like sometimes you go to a place and they'll charge you like $20 for a pizza that's like the size of a small pizza in America. And like even if you go to like Domino's here, like their regular price for pizza is usually twice as expensive as it should be. So that's why I only get pizza when I can get a 50% off coupon. And so the prices, yeah, the amount that you're getting is going to be smaller. But also that's the thing of if you're getting like non-Japanese food. If you get Japanese food, it's actually kind of be the opposite. Where like if you want to get ramen in the States, you can spend like $30 on ramen that would only cost you maybe, I don't know, like $6 over here, or maybe like 7 or 8, I guess, depending on where you go. And even with ramen, like there's places that you could go to that you can get ramen for about $5, 500 yen, and the ramen will actually have what's the word? Will have free. I don't know if it's not really free refills, but you can get extra noodles. Like after you eat the noodles the first time, you can actually get extra noodles on top of that for free at some places. Like there's one place I went to where if you're really hungry and you just want to be super full and like feel like completely like stuffed, you pay $5 to get your ramen, and it's a big bowl. And keep in mind, when I say ramen, I'm not talking about like like cup noodles ramen. I'm talking like an actual bowl of like homemade ramen with like chashu. Is it beef or is it pork? I think it's pork. It's like a pork a cutlet and like vegetables and stuff in there. So it's a full on meal, right? Not just like instant noodles. And you get that, and they give you I think it was up to 2 refills of noodles, so you can eat all your noodles, but then you still have your soup left over, so you refill the noodles, eat them all again, and then do it again after that. And like I don't know if I could really, like if I do that now, I'll be completely stuffed. Like it's a lot. And also a lot of carbs though, so I don't know how good that is for you, but yeah, that is a thing as well. And the other thing about it that I mentioned briefly was that there's no tips, and there's no tipping in Japan. So that's really it's really nice, because you never have that kind of like uncomfortableness of like not knowing if you're supposed to tip or not, or like how much you're supposed to tip, and like then like at the end of a meal like calculating like how good was my service and all that type of stuff. You don't have to worry about any of that. And you might think that because you don't tip, maybe the service isn't going to be as good, but the service is actually better usually. I would say it's not as personal. Like they don't really take the time to like get to know you per se. They aren't gonna like talk about like your family or anything like that. They're not gonna be like, oh, how the kids going or something. Like, even if it's a place you go to all the time, you know, they're generally very very by the books. But in terms of just general service, the service is always going to be pretty impeccable. They take a lot of pride into their work. So how are we doing here? That covers the leather for the most part. So it's been about an hour. I think I may call it there for today. Let's see. Yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if there's any topics or things you want me to talk about in the future. And until next time, yoroshiku.